Hey there, guys. So, as you can tell by the fact that I didn't go to my splash screen, I'm not giving my regular intro. Today's episode is going to be a little bit more serious because I need to start off with something, because we've been personally affected by some things, by the actions of some. So, I'm aware that my views, particularly in this place where I live, are not popular, and I disagree with people a lot. I nonetheless say things because they're true. But what happened recently was, if you go and listen to my interview with Kimberley Isherwood, where I said, when you start pushing back against these things, when you start pushing back against evil, you're going to get a target on your back. You're going to get a target on your back. People, not only in the government, like we're seeing at the minute with James Harvey, who's just been arrested this morning ahead of the protest he organised outside the Brook Hotel. For those of you who are not sure why people are protesting, allegedly, again, I have to say allegedly, but a migrant asylum seeker, again, has been, when we know these people aren't real asylum seekers, has been alleged to have forced a 15-year-old girl to satisfy him with her hand, should we say, and nothing's been done. And now James Harvey was one of the people on the ground in that area when it happened, has now been, I believe, arrested on trumped up charges of racial aggravation, I believe, for using terms like migrant filth and stuff like that, when, I don't know, I think pedophiles, no matter where they're from, are, filthy. Or at least the very act is filthy. Again, from the perspective that I come from, you want to pray that people are able to repent of that and truly deal with it, truly deal with the demons that are inside them, or the things that they're dealing with, temptations, vices, all the rest of it. You want to help them work their way towards true healing. There's only one way that that's going to happen. People don't want to accept it, but there's only one way that that's going to happen. And but at the end of the day, what our government is doing, and that's the biggest thing, what our government is doing is putting people in danger massively at every single turn, in Wales, in England, everywhere. People don't want to admit it, particularly because people have been so entrenched, or this evil ideology has become so entrenched in people's minds. If you do anything to fight against it, even just saying things because you're angry on X, for example, you now get deemed as a fascist, you now get deemed as a Nazi, all of these things. But not only that, people who are around you then become fair game for guilt by association and be able to attack as well. And that's what, I keep going out of focus. Why do I keep going out of focus? There we go. That's a bit better. That's what happened recently. So a little bit of background. Why I'm going to continue to do the show as best I can, because truth matters at the end of the day. Truth matters. And speaking these things, if people, at the first sign that potentially things could befall, they give up, well, that's what evil wants at the end of the day. So people not to fight it. We recently had somebody who is local to us, friend of my girlfriend's for pretty much her entire life, right? Who, upon seeing some of the things that I posted on X, reposted even, not even necessarily things that I'd said as far as I know, I haven't seen them, but reposted them and sent them to my girlfriend and said, if this is what you're okay with, then you and your fascist boyfriend could go kick rocks. Don't ever speak to me again. That was the thing. My girlfriend, not being very politically active, not having a big political mind, not really knowing the things that I was saying and stuff like that, was very shocked by this, shocked by the things that I was saying, obviously, because for the most part, this is the thing why her smear was so inaccurate, is that she doesn't agree on these things. But again, it's guilt by association. It's a struggle session at the end of the day, is what this is. So after saying that, the weird thing is that this person then contacted another mutual friend and then tried to plead the case as though she was concerned for my girlfriend's safety, saying, is this person, my girlfriend's name, safe? Does she still work at this place? Obviously trying to find out where she worked, likely to go and cause a scene, as we've seen this leftists do time and time and time again. The reason I'm saying this, ladies and gentlemen, is because when you say things like this, when you start pushing back against this, you get a target on your back. This can come from anywhere. This came from a person that lives very close to us. This came from a person that lives very close to us. And it will come from people inside your social circles as well, because this is how deep this evil has become entrenched. And woe to those who call good evil and evil good. Now, that being said, one thing I often do not make the best sort of thing for myself is when I do get caught in cycles of anger and emotion online, and I do then type things that in a more sane, if you will, or in a more level-headed frame of mind, I would probably phrase them differently, even if I wanted to say the same points. But a lot of times these people don't actually disagree with the things that I'm trying to highlight. So because a lot of the things now we've told about immigration, all of these different things, diversity, equity, inclusion, all of these things, because they've been entrenched like a religion, it doesn't really matter what you say. If you say anything against it, you're fair game no matter how you say it. It doesn't really matter. But one thing that I will be doing going forward, if I'm on social media and stuff like that, particularly on X, because X is a hotbed of anger, particularly because it's the one place you can go to get the truth of these things. You won't see these things coming out on Sky News. You won't see them coming out on BBC. You won't see them coming out on ITV. You won't see them, for the most part, coming out on Channel 4 and places like that. You'll see the odd documentary here and there, but you won't see the cases being brought forward or anything like that on the mainstream news organizations, the legacy media organizations. That's why people use X. That's why it's the #1 downloaded news app, the #1 app for news in the world. And that's why our government are trying to censor it so much with the online safety bill, for example, which started off as a bill to protect young children, I believe it was, from pornography and things like that, which I would support, right? I would support. But now it's being used to censor things like the protests that are going on outside migrant hotels and stuff like that. Again, this is truly, truly Orwellian stuff. But we had this pushback happen, as I said it would happen, from someone in our social circle. So don't think that it can't happen to you. But what matters is that we do take a stand for the good. And the sad thing is that has come now with serious risk. But what does it take for evil to flourish? Just good people to do nothing. Good people to do nothing. I understand I'm a small voice. That's why I appreciate your guys' support. And that is why I thank you for everybody that's, recently subscribed and stuff like that. This channel's still growing and stuff like that. But obviously, with these people, we've seen what they do. I said we put, my face is out there now anyway. Everything's already done and out there now anyway. But yeah, you might see my style of social media posting and stuff like that changing going forward. Not just because now, again, we've had pushback personally, but because I look back on a lot of the things that I've said, the way that I've said the things, and I don't like it. I don't like a lot of the way that I phrase things, because everything that I say, the reason why I'm drawing attention to these issues is because I love my country, I love my faith, I love my family, and I want them to now grow up, or grow old, as my mom and dad are growing old, but I want us to grow up and grow a family in a country that's going to be safe and prosperous. A country that's going to be safe and prosperous. That's what I care about. The government is doing everything they can to put us in danger because they want foreign voting blocs in this country, because that will consolidate their power. Literally said that. That was literally put on Front Street by the Democrat representative Yvette Clarke in the show a couple of days ago. And now it's being put through in Ireland, where they want to put compulsory purchase order bills to seize people's houses and land in order. Why would they want to do it? For exactly the same reason they're doing it already right now. Building migrant plantations, building housing for migrants, because then they'll give them the right to vote. They'll vote for the government that gave them there. The Irish vote then means nothing, and they will be outvoted, and then they will be second-class citizens in their own country. Make no mistake about it. That is what they have for every single one of us. So contrary to what the person that believes that said this about me, all of the libels where they called me a fascist and everything else and the Antichrist, yeah, good luck with that one. Good luck with that one when your side is the one that supports the killing of infants in the womb and dismembering them together. The ultimate union between humanity and the devil is in that moment, and you would support it. Don't call me the Antichrist when you support that. Don't call me a fascist when I literally say maybe less government for certain things is a good idea. Maybe if we've tried more government and it's not working, it's getting worse, maybe less government is a good idea, when you know, if you know what the term fascist means, that the fascist would never say that. The fascist would never say let's have less government, because the fascist wants the same government apparatus that the communist or the socialist wants. They just want to use it for different ends. So I say, maybe less government is maybe a good idea. You can't call me a fascist. If you're using that word, it's because you don't know what that word means. And I'm not saying any of this out in anger of you, because I understand the struggle that you're going through. I understand the struggle that you're going through. But please, we are not enemies. We are not enemies. The door is always open for reconciliation. Please, you've been taken in by grave evils. You're using words that quite clearly you don't know what they mean. Believing good is evil and evil is good. Please, please, I'm talking to you, the person, specifically. As a result of what happened, my girlfriend was very fearful and very fearful for the future. But it's the actions that people like you have done that have contributed to that cycle of fear because of how it's changed the country. I want you on my team. I want you on my team because, believe it or not, I doubt you'll believe this, but believe it or not, I'm fighting for you and your generations as well. I know you may not see it that way, but I am. Trust me, you don't want our community to end up like Luton, to end up like Blackburn, to end up like Bradford, to end up like all these places. You don't want that, I promise you. If anything, it's going to affect you more than it will me. So please, let's be on the same side. Let's be on the same side, because I'm not any of the things that you said that I am. Even though on times on X, I can get a bit angry. And when you see a lot of when you're on X, and admittedly, this is a problem with me, I'm on X far too much. I'm on X far too much, and I get angry. But I get angry because of the state of the country that it's in. I get angry because of the evil that's being perpetuated all throughout the world, and people want to further that evil and not combat it. That's why I get angry. So please, let's be on the same team. But anyway, that was what happened recently. So, like I said, it's just one of the things I didn't, especially because I'm only a small voice, it's not something that I ever really expected would happen. It's something that I always knew could happen, but it's not something I ever thought really would happen. But as I said, everything I want to bring forward here, everything I'm saying, the things I'm drawing attention to, is because I love my people, I love my faith, I love my country, and I want them to grow up, family included, in a society that is safe and prosperous, with a government that actually works for them, a government by the people, for the people. That's not what we have right now. What you're supporting, you in particular, what you're supporting is more akin to fascism than anything I support. And I actually get really worried when I see young people, in particular now on social media, getting very radicalized towards that end of the spectrum. I actually get very concerned that we're actually, in the near future, we're going to go the opposite way too far. I do have that concern in my mind. But we are at war and we need to be on the same team. Now on with today's show. I want to make it clear that regardless of what happened there personally, is that I don't have any ill will towards this person. I'm not angry or anything like that. Just angry at the evil that's being perpetuated throughout the world. That's what I'm angry at. I'm angry at how tight Satan's grip is on a lot of people. That's what I'm angry at. I'm just hoping more and more people will wake up and join me in the fight. Please. So on with today's show. What we got today for you, ladies and gentlemen, some things that I bookmarked. And everything, again, should hopefully come through in the topics we're going to be talking about today. That I'm just concerned with the future of our country and our people and the trajectory that we're going on and the evil that's being perpetuated as good. Woe to those who call good evil and evil good. Such as politicians that want to use your children to attract people to this country whom are very likely to do them harm because of their ideology, because of the reasons that they would be coming here. So you have Labour councillors in this country that are boasting about creating schools of sanctuary for asylum seekers. Now, the only thing is that these asylum seekers are not asylum seekers. They are economic migrants coming here, whether they're coming here for a better life or whatever, not even going to go down that path. But they're not coming here because they're fleeing persecution. Otherwise, they'd stay in one of the other safe countries in Europe. There's a reason they're coming here. It's because we bend over backwards for them, or rather the government bends over backwards for them. And they know they're going to get everything paid for here. Everything paid for by the taxpayer. They get such a lucrative deal here. That's why they come over from France. Otherwise, they'd stay in France. They'd stay in one of these other countries. But they're also coming over for the conquest element. Because they're bringing ideas over with them that call for the deaths of you and me. That call for the deaths and subjugation, violent subjugation and conversion by the sword of you and me. Many people are already at the point where they're giving themselves over, and we're losing everything as a result. This is why we're in a fight, and this is the thing. Every single public institution, which many people are obviously in support of, are against you. It's the reason why the people who are running these schemes, the globalists and stuff like that, when they see just regular people supporting these things, it's the reason the term useful idiot exists. And that's not me insulting you. I'm saying you're on the side that is furthering your downfall, and that is furthering your enslavement and subjugation. So you have Labour councillors here, like I said, boasting about creating schools of sanctuary for asylum seekers. We've gone on from cities of sanctuary now to schools of sanctuary. These people should be nowhere near children. But here we go. Here's leader Jane Mudd. Jane Mudd, who's the Welsh leader and cooperative PCC for Gwent. Talking about making schools of sanctuary to encourage asylum seekers, ladies and gentlemen.
I've welcomed refugees and asylum seekers to our great city. This week, presiding member, I will have the privilege of attending Maindee Primary School. Maindee Primary School has become a school of sanctuary, meaning that it's recognised for being a place of welcome and safety, where the school builds empathy and intercultural awareness. There are around 520 pupils on roll, with approximately 93% of pupils who have English as an additional language.
That is horrifying. That should be horrifying. That should be horrifying to you. But the only thing is, with the, what was it? Multicultural awareness, I believe it was. Intercultural awareness and empathy. Empathy is not necessarily bad in and of itself, as we know. But there's certain things you have empathy for and certain things that you don't. If a culture comes over and says that child sacrifice is okay, hell, that's basically what the rape of Britain was, as the government sacrificed a bunch of children, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, on the altar of multiculturalism by allowing these rape gangs to prosper all across the country. They're operating in Cardiff, they're operating in Swansea, likely some operating in Newport. They're operating in the big cities first, and then wherever you get large influxes of these people where they start taking over, they happen as well. That's why they happened in Luton. Luton was one of the first places, I believe, where these things started cropping up. That's why they happened in Telford, Oldham, all of these other places. This is not good. This is not good. But think about it as well. Your kids don't want to go to school in the future. The sad reality is that every person that comes in from outside is going to be taking one of those spaces. Is going to be taking one of those spaces. So then what are you left to do? Especially when we're already told there's no money for anything anyway. So all of a sudden then we're going to start building new schools. But then you have schools up in a country where you have British as a minority. I believe it's 1 in 4 schools in England now. You have British children as a minority. That's actually not okay. This is deeply, deeply damaging, especially when a lot of these people are bringing in ideologies that these kids are going to be espousing the ideologies of their parents, and they directly conflict with our own in many instances, usually because of religious differences. So no, this is actually really, really not good. And she's actually going to say here now, with over 42 languages being spoken, how the hell can you have a cohesive society on the same page with 42 languages being spoken? You can't. You can't. Nothing cohesive about it. Unless society is cohesive, at the very least, how can you be sure that everybody's on the same page with regards to laws and principles and all of these things? You can't. It should shock you none that with the disunity that has happened in society, this is the reason why so many terror attacks and so many foreign enclaves in places have opened up, and that you walk down some avenues in certain places now and it feels like a foreign country. Because that's what happens when you make cities of sanctuary and schools of sanctuary and all of these things. You get disunity and then you get conflict. That's why you see in London that you get a rape reported every hour. Rape reported every hour. Am I really a Nazi and a fascist if I say I don't want this?
Language, with over 42 languages being spoken. They've recently received accreditation as the first school of sanctuary in Newport, and they also hold the Bronze Peace Marla certification. Both are central to their work. The community work in the school has long been a feature of their core purpose at Maindy. They've had to develop clear pathways with a range of partners in relentless work to ensure the basic needs of local families.
So for those who can't see this on screen, ladies and gentlemen, it says Maindy Primary. This is a primary school. Roles and responsibilities of a young interpreter. Young interpreter scheme at Maindy Primary School. Welcoming new pupils and families every Thursday, showing around the school, introducing them to their class teacher, helping them with daily school routines and activities. Gather families in every morning in different home languages, translating messages for families, recording messages for families and staff via Seesaw. Why is this being put onto? Why is this being put onto what we can only assume is the children? Young interpreter scheme at Maindy Primary School. I only assume that this is being put onto the children. Why are our children being forced to deal with this? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. But again, the children were always the target. They wanted you to think that this was normal. They want children to grow up and think this is normal, to be growing up in a society where nobody is on the same page. It's not normal. It's destruction by design. It's going to affect your children the most.
Met to allow pupils to thrive in school. The school aims to create a positive change in how families, pupils and communities interact all around the school.
So, very, very troubling, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that children are now being used as propaganda tools for government policy. Spoke about this, I believe there was a video that, I might have got slightly wrong at the time, but there was a video that was being shared by another school to attract migrants to Wales. And they had children in their school uniforms on school grounds recording this really cutesy video. Like, why are you using children? Who's going to see children and then think, oh, I want to go there? Do you think maybe they're not coming here with the best of intentions? Do you ever stop to think that? That maybe these people coming here, if they see a child and are motivated to go to that country, maybe they're a person that doesn't belong in this country. Just maybe. Just maybe. But it doesn't stop there, ladies and gentlemen, because the Liberal Democrats are not much better. The Liberal Democrat MPs, LibDem David for Brecon, Radnor and Cwmtawi. So I'm just trying to move this cable out the way a minute. Praised and participated in an asylum propaganda exercise in a primary school in his constituency. It was organised by the City of Sanctuary campaign as part of its Schools of Sanctuary programme. And again, this is an exercise, ladies and gentlemen, where they were actively using children in this asylum propaganda exercise, and they kept the children's faces in it. The image, which I'll show you in a moment, the faces are covered. It was actually the people that posted this, the Doge Wales Senedd Waste guys, blurred the kids' faces out. They didn't actually blur the kids' faces out in the actual exercise themselves and the things they put on social media. It was primary, which I'm not surprised, to be honest. I had somebody that worked in primary as an assistant teacher, as a teaching assistant, and they told me some troubling things about that primary, particularly that allegedly, and I'm going to say this is alleged, but again, with everything, with all the lunacy going on, I actually buy it. I don't believe they had reason to lie about this. Apparently, they actually had litter boxes in the classrooms for kids that were identifying as cats. This is the kind of stuff that we're having in primary, allegedly. Allegedly. Again, I'm going to reinforce that, allegedly. In an article published on its website, the City of Sanctuary confirmed that 10 and 11-year-old pupils visited Parliament to present letters to Mr Chadwick. The letters called for legislation to make it easier for asylum seekers to come to Britain by allowing them to apply for asylum outside the UK. City of Sanctuary claimed the children are hopeful their letters will spark a wider conversation in Parliament. Students also undertook a research exercise on the current limitations of UK asylum policy. Pretty much anybody can claim asylum, though. That's the thing. Pretty much anybody can claim asylum. You see people exploiting the current legislation that we have simply because they've done a heinous crime in this country. They've done something heinous like assault a child, yeah? So they've done something heinous like sexually assault a child, and then they can fall back on asylum or legislation where if they are persecuted in their home country for the things that they have done, they can't be sent back. Tell me how that is in any way justice for the people of this country and for the victims that this person has now irreparably harmed for the rest of their life, right? And you see truly, sometimes I do wonder if they're fake headlines. But as far as I know, people were sharing it. It wasn't a fake headline. One of them was recently rejected, or rather, they couldn't be deported because something to do with McDonald's chicken nuggets, that they couldn't get McDonald's chicken nuggets at home. That was an actual thing that happened, to the best of my knowledge. I know it sounds stupid. It sounds stupid and it sounds unbelievable. But these things are happening. Now that the courts, the European courts and the Human Rights Act that we have, are keeping these foreign criminals in this country because if we send them home, they'll suffer a fate worse than anything we'll give them. I'm sorry. I don't really care what will happen to a foreign paedophile. I want him removed from my country. And I think we should all want that. We shouldn't be accepting of this grave evil. And those people that are bringing the same evil, we should not be accepting of them. We should love them in the sense that we want to love them so that they will accept the truth and they will join us. They will join us in worshipping the one true God, for example. That's true love, that they will accept the one true God's love. That we can all love together. We can make disciples of all nations. Funny enough, you can't make disciples of all nations if you don't have any nations. Everything that's being pushed is one world government, that there's going to be no national sovereignty, there's going to be no nations. You can't make disciples of all nations if there are no nations. And what is a nation ultimately? It's people. A nation is ultimately its people. So I'm all for making disciples of all nations. But you cannot make disciples of all nations unless there are nations to make disciples of. And everything that's being done is to erode the nations themselves and to erode the people. That's what diversity is. That's what City of Sanctuary, that's what School of Sanctuary is. And they're using your children to further their political aims. That should make you angry. That should make you extremely angry. In addition to posing gleefully with pupils as he accepted the letters, Liberal Democrat MP Chadwick also praised the initiative according to the... Of course he did, because these are the foreign voters that these people want. These people don't care about the votes of their constituents anymore. They're banking on the fact that they're going to get more from the foreign bloc, that they don't have to pay attention to the native bloc anymore. So that target is on your back whether you like it or not. Are we really supposed to believe that primary school children understand current immigration and asylum laws in this detail and form this idea of their own volition? No, of course they don't. No, of course they don't. None of us understood it when we were going through school and we were having this propaganda injected straight into our fucking brains. None of us understood it. Many people who went through a school system that are same age as me now still don't get it. In fact, that's probably most people. They still don't get it. So how can you expect children to get it? When you have children now saying that they're the wrong sex or anything like that, for example, they're born in the wrong body, that I'm a girl and they're actually a boy, it's the duty of the parent to reinforce the truth. Because, funnily enough, you actually do know better, or you should know better. And if you don't, you really need to have a good look in the fucking mirror. Children do not understand these things. So children that are not yet old enough to realise that Santa Claus is not real, and I'm sorry if that's a spoiler for you, should not be part of the decision-making process in any way with regards to something as serious as asylum and immigration and the demographic makeup of this country that they are affecting. I'm sorry, children, there's some things children should not have a say in. When they cannot even do long division, they should not be told about asylum policy. Or was it presented to them by open borders propagandists at the City of Sanctuary? There's the answer. School's head teacher, Robert Francis, also has serious questions to answer. He said the project was designed to, quote, help children understand their role as active citizens and their ability to influence change. Children should not be influencing change in any way. That's for the adults to do. That's an adult responsibility. It's good to introduce kids to politics when they're at a certain age, not when they're in bloody primary school. Not when they're in primary school and they're learning how to tell time. Not when they're in primary school and they're learning maybe the basics of history and stuff like that, which is always going to be very, very, has to now be viewed through an anti-racist lens and is complete bastardization of history anyway. But this is all grooming them into the fact that they want them to vote younger. They put their heads full of this shit and then they vote younger because then they're useful idiots for the regime. They're useful idiots for the regime. And I don't mean any disrespect to the children when they say that. The problem is the children don't stand a chance. The children don't stand a chance because they're dealing with beings, i.e. the adults, that are much, much smarter than them. That are much, much smarter than them and are using them for their naivety. It's on you, the parents, to stand against that. And many parents have allowed themselves to be caught up in this as well. Children should not be dictating policy. Not when they can't even tell that Santa Claus is not real. Quite why Francis believes this is a project of this nature involving an organisation which wants open borders without a care for the risks that it poses to children is appropriate in a school is a very good question. Yeah, absolutely should be investigated. He may wish to reflect on whether parents will be happy when they realise just what this organisation stands for. Instead of endorsing the project, Liberal Democrat MP Chadwick should have expressed concerns taking action to stop future visits occurring. Liberal Democrat councillors running Powys County Council are also culpable. There's so many facets of this, and this is how entrenched socialism gets into these places. It's how people have no real recourse to fight back against these things because nothing is democratic. There's no such thing as democratic socialism. There's no such thing as democratic socialism. We're not voting our way out of this, I don't think. But the other thing is, the sad thing is that parents will see this and they won't see anything wrong with it. So here's the example. Here's the photos that are coming out of this. So here is there we are. Right. Let me just do this. There we are. So these are the photos in question, the Gemma, that were posted. So as you can see, you have the young kids here outside Parliament. And obviously, as I said before, it wasn't the Liberal Democrat who posted this, the Welsh Democrat that posted this, that blurred their faces. Okay, so anybody could be seeing this from anywhere. Again, children being used as a political tool to further policy that is actively putting them in danger. But they didn't even blur the faces. It was the guys that posted this at dojos that blurred the faces. But yeah, this is what your politicians are spending your tax money on. It's what your politicians are spending your tax money on. You're funding your own children's indoctrination into the dissolution of their own country that they're growing up in. It's truly, truly sick. It's truly, truly sick, and it should make everyone sick. But again, they dress everything up in cutesy language. That's another thing I talked about with Kimberley Isherwood, for example, with regards to the trans stuff and the sexualization of children. They dress everything up in cutesy language so that most people still think that it's a good thing. They still think they're doing a good thing. You're not. You're not. It never was envisioned to be a good thing. It's just, again, the devil is a master manipulator. Devil is truly a master manipulator. He thinks in ways that we never could. He thinks in ways that we never could. Call it gender-affirming care. Call it gender-affirming care instead of child mutilization and sterilization, which is exactly what it is. Call it pro-choice instead of child dismemberment and destruction and throwing in a waste bin and an incinerator. That's what it is. Call it good when it isn't egregious evil, which is what it is. And using children in this way for political initiatives is an egregious evil. So have a look at some of the people that would be attracted by things like this. This was a recent thing. You have all of the examples of the grooming gangs extracts, all of these things, the court excerpts that came out a little while ago, all of these things, trials that are still going through. It's not just children. Your elderly are not even safe. The elderly are not even safe outside of their houses of God, because there was recently an immigrant was charged with raping a man in his 60s outside a church in Harrow. So you have a person by the name of Brooke Desaligne, however you say that, Desaligne? I don't know how to bloody say that. I don't know where the bloody hell he's from. 32, of no fixed address, has been charged with rape following a serious incident outside St. John's Church on Station Road in Harrow during the early hours of Wednesday, 23rd of July. Police were called to the scene at 0:49 a.m., where two distinctive yellow and white forensic tents will lead the scene set up outside the church. A cordon was put in place and the area remained closed off throughout the day. A spokesperson for the Metropolitan Police said Brooke, however the bloody hell you say his surname, with no fixed address, has been charged with rape on Wednesday, July 23rd. He appeared at Willesden Magistrates Court yesterday morning. Victim, a man in his 60s, is being supported by specialist police officers and, as I said, he was arrested at the scene on suspicion of sexual assault. So again, not even our elderly are safe. It's not just children you're putting in danger, it's elderly as well. So you've got to take into account most of the people coming across on quote-unquote asylum legislation are young military-age men, 32. The people who we talked about in the Tottenham Turks incident the other day, the oldest one was in his early 40s. So again, it's not just this, you're putting old people in danger as well. Now you mentioned that the generations of the generations of immigrants that come from these people that initially came over, that refused to assimilate, and we've seen that. I don't like saying that, but we have seen that they refuse to assimilate. You see videos of them, countless of them. Not even just from one place necessarily, doesn't matter where they're from, but they're not native to this country, holding up and robbing elderly people. If that doesn't break your heart, don't know what will. When you see an elderly guy with a walking stick beset by 3 young men and being robbed and he can do nothing about it. In fact, see if I can find you an example. See if I can. And again, I don't like admitting this, but this is the classic example of something that happened the other day. This is an incident this was posted 2 days ago, but I know it's been up for a little while. It was posted back in February as well. I'm not sure where this is from. I'm trying to figure out where this is from. But you have this man who, I think it's Britain, very likely fought in wars to protect this country. And here you have these people that in no way should be here, robbing him in a group, besetting him and robbing him, dragging him to the floor, an elderly, frail, disabled man. So when I say, and again, you don't need to hate any individual person when you say this, but there are people coming over under this open borders legislation, under the same schemes and the same ideas that are being put through by City of Sanctuary, Nation of Sanctuary, Schools of Sanctuary, all of these things that are putting our people in danger. The target has been on our back for a long fucking time. But we need now to have the courage to stand up. And the people who you view as your enemies are likely your friends. Like I said this before, the people talking about these things, the people trying to bring attention to these things. You know? People like myself who, yes, I get angry on times, like I said, but people who are trying to bring attention to these things because we're concerned about you. I'm speaking to you specifically again, if you're seeing this. I want your children, if you intend on having any, to grow up in a country that is safe, prosperous, where they're not going to be set by people like this. It's impossible to have a country without danger and without evil, yes. But by removing a lot of people from this country that shouldn't be here, we can alleviate a lot of the evil, and that's just the reality of the situation. It's an uncomfortable reality, and I don't like saying it. And I don't say it with any resentment and any, in particular, evil towards any particular person. But that's the reality of the situation. It's a grim reality, but that's what it is. Blame the government for ever having put us in this position where we now have to say these things and we have to admit these things. blame the government for not doing a better job and being a more holy institution. People like this. This would be a great example of somebody that could come over here as an asylum seeker, when they literally said they're here to rule our land, our people, Trump, Elon Musk. I believe this person's gone into America, I believe it is, although there's Arabic on the wall here, so I'm not exactly sure where this person is. But this is indicative of the mindset of a lot of these people that are coming over. They're not coming over to assimilate, they're coming over to conquer.
I want to hear your story, and I want to hear about the drugs.
Why do you want to hear my story?
It's quite.
I'm not here to tell a story. I'm here to rule. Fucking rule.
To rule?
I'm here to rule. To rule you, to rule Trump, to rule Elon Musk, to rule Netanyahu, to rule Jews.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
But with that attitude,
strange thing to say.
They literally say it.
Yeah, it's
it's a very poor attitude.
You're a great guest. You're a great guest.
No.
You're a great guest.
Not guest.
Yeah, so you're a guest.
They don't see themselves as guests.
No, I'm not guest. This is my land.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Like,
Just to confirm, you are staying.
These people should be thanking us. If they're true asylum seekers fleeing persecution, they should be thanking us. Please, thank you for taking us in so we don't get persecuted by our own government. Thank you for allowing us to reside in this land. But we are the sojourner until maybe we are able to get back on our own feet and then go back home and make ourselves stable again. But we are thankful that you have given us shelter and sanctuary. These people are not thankful because they're not here for shelter and sanctuary. They're here to take over. They have done in many places, many cities. Look at London. Look at other cities like Bradford, Telford, Rochdale. Again, I rattle off the names all over again because these are examples where exactly this thing has happened. I don't want it to happen here. We're still quite lucky at the moment. I feel that we are not as bad as those other places, but your politicians want to turn us into those places because they see it as a political effort. They see themselves gaining political power from these things because they have votes. They have votes that they see that they can get when in reality, what will happen is your politicians right now, Labour, Plaid, all of these politicians, LibDems, they're feeding a shark, they're feeding a monster, they're feeding your kids and your taxes, all of these things to this monster because they are hoping that they'll be able to keep it at bay. If they allow it to get a little bit bigger each time, keep feeding it, keep it at bay, it'll keep working for us. As soon as the monster gets big enough, it will eat them as well, and we will all go with it. So what your politicians, all of these open border, very liberal politicians right now are feeding you to this machine, feeding your taxes, feeding your children, literally in many instances, to this machine. You know, look at Charlene Downs, for example. Look at the case of Charlene Downs, where it's alleged that she was put into the meat in a kebab shop, that they actually ground her up and put her into the meat in a kebab shop. That's not a lie. There's actual news stories written about that. So in many instances, they're literally feeding your children to this machine, literally feeding your children to this monster, feeding you as well through your tax money. All the while, this monster is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And when it gets big enough, it will eat the person that was feeding them, and it will eat all of us well. We will go down with them. So we cannot allow that to happen. We have to stop feeding this monster. But in order to stop feeding this monster, we have to first see the monster for what it is. That these people, many of these people that may be coming over, not necessarily coming over with the worst of intentions, as many of them are, but many of them might not be coming over with the worst of intentions. But a politician using foreign people as a tool to bolster their political power and, what's the word I'm looking for? Reduce the political power of citizens should never be allowed to happen. That should never be allowed to happen. So that's where I say everything that's anger is not only anger at people like this who outright say that they want to take over, that they want to rule me, they want to rule you, they want to rule our land and all of this stuff. Yes, I'm angry at this person, right? Yes, I love this person. I want them to see the truth, accept the truth. The person that said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, that nobody comes to the Father except through me. I'd love that. I'd love that for him. I'd love for everybody to do that. But you can't just open your doors to these people. You can't just open your doors to these people. When they don't need it, they want that door open so they can exploit it. And yeah, I know you're not going to like hearing that, but it's true. When these people tell you, believe them. When these people tell you, believe them. Because you see things like this, right? You see things like this. In one state, I believe this was in Germany, you had 209 cases of gang rape, right? In 2023. And of these cases, it says here, 84 suspects were foreign nationals and 71 were German citizens. Now, what names would you expect to come from a German citizen? A German, presumably. I don't know. Rudolf, maybe like Rudolf Hess, Hermann, maybe. All these traditional German names, right? What about Ahmed? What about Bayar? What about Bilal? What about Burak? What about Furkan? What about Gamil? What about Hanif? What about Hasib? What about Ibrahim? What about Ismail? What about Khan? What about Melik? What about Mirak? What about Miran? What about Mohammed? What about Muhammad? What about, well, Nicholas and Norbert, they seem quite normal. What about Nurkan? Suleiman? Wahel? Yasar Engin? However the hell you say these things. So this is the statement in question. Last year, police in the German state of North Rhine-Westphalia arrested 155 suspects in connection with 209 cases of gang rape. A total of 84 suspects were foreign nationals, 71 were German citizens. At the request of the AfD state parliamentary party, the state government has published the first names of the German suspects. And these are distinctly not German names. These are distinctly not German names. So we have problems. This should outrage you. This should outrage you in the same way it's outraged me. But that's the thing. When people have got caught up in these thought process that get them to call evil good and good evil. There's a reason, I believe I said this before, there's a reason why heaven has such strict border controls. Anyone can enter. Christianity is true. Anyone can enter, but it has very strict border controls. But hell, anyone can enter. And it's an open borders paradise, baby. There's no strict border controls for entering hell. Have a little think about that. Have a little think about that. And this is the mindset of most people that they allow themselves to get into. So this is indicative of the problem. But people, again, I don't like to belittle people or anything like that necessarily. I do that a lot online when I'm, again, in emotional states and stuff like that, and I want to poke fun at certain things. But this is an example in real time of people saying something, not understanding what they mean, and realizing then that they don't actually have a clue what they're talking about. This is an interview with a German ANTIFA activist. It's a blonde lady. They called it AfD right-wing radical bastards. The AfD, by the way, is led by a lady, by the way, a lesbian lady with a Sri Lankan partner. So tells you a lot about the quote-unquote like right-wing fascism kind of thing, right? That spread lies, cannot give one example of a lie she claims that they spread. And that's the biggest thing, is that people will say these things, they won't have anything to back them up. They'll call people a fascist, but they won't be able to explain how they're a fascist. They'll call people a Nazi, but they won't be able to explain how they're a Nazi. But in many ways then, the sad thing is that these people are more like the people that they claim to be against than they realize. Because they stand for the exact same things, just on the opposite side of the aisle on the issues. That's why we use the term as a horseshoe to describe these things. Because the radical sides of these things are not so different from each other. They might be on the opposite sides in terms of issues. One might be radically closed borders, the other one might be radically open borders, but they both want to employ the same methods to achieve that. So they might have opposite objectives, but they have the same goal, the same means that they want to accomplish it by. So have a little think about that as you watch this lady now try and articulate why she believes the AFD are liars and right-wing fascists and stuff like that, or was it radical right-wingers? And it's very satisfying in a way to watch, because the deer in the headlights look comes on her face in a massive way. But again, if you're going to say these things, you best know what you're talking about. Says, I'm ashamed to be Jim because of the AFD. I'm going to pause it a minute because I'll translate it for you in real time. So the guy says then, okay, what has the AFD done that makes people feel this way? They are completely insane and spread a lot of lies. Play on people's fears. And haven't learned much from history. Interesting. In your opinion, what is the biggest lie the AFD spreads? Oh, there it is. Very long pause. Very long pause. Next question, she says. And he says, yes, why are you here? To oppose them. She can't articulate why. She can't articulate why. That's the biggest thing, is that these people, if you ask them, I'm a fascist, for example, probably wouldn't be able to say. Again, kind of interesting when I said before that maybe more government is not a good idea. No true fascist would ever say that. No true fascist would ever say that, because they want total governmental control for an ultra-nationalist bend, right? But this is the thing. Again, it comes back to the issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. That's what ultimately it comes back to. These people now, they cannot even articulate why they're there. They're just doing so because they, I guess, believe that this is good. But again, those are called good evil and evil good. When Germany is at serious risk of outright being colonized in many instances now, with the amount that they've taken in, with the damage that Angela Merkel and the other guy that's coming now, Merz, have done. So yeah, it's really, really sad to see what's happened in Germany and all over Europe. It's the thing, our countries now are radically becoming unsafe for the people of this country. And say what you want, there are people of these countries. An English person is a person with a set ethnicity that is indigenous to indigenous to the Isles of England, or indigenous to the lands of England. Same thing with Wales, same thing with Scotland. They're all ethnically indigenous people to these lands. That's why we have a patron saint of David, for example, and St. George and St. Andrew and St. Patrick and stuff like that, who brought the gospel who were charged with bringing the gospel to these lands. Right? At least that's the case with St. David. Anyway. But again, you wouldn't have a patron saint if you didn't have Wales, and you wouldn't have Wales without its people. You wouldn't have Wales without its people. So a lot of people want to, this is the thing, a lot of people, they say this, and then you say, how can you be opposed to this if you're a Christian? Because this is not what Christ would have people do. At least I don't think so. At least I don't think so. Nowhere did he say you had to open your gates wide and let everybody in. Treat everybody with love, treat everybody with care. I understand you'll be persecuted for my sake. You got to take into account, Christ was not necessarily against violence. In John's Gospel, chapter 2, he goes in and fashions a whip and whips the merchants out of the temple. People forget that side of him. People forget that side of him as well. He was never tolerant of evil. He was never tolerant of evil. When he called to make people disciples of all nations, you cannot have that unless you have nations to make disciples of. That's why the way I'm thinking about it is that we're only going to get close to anything resembling, true heaven on earth, if you will. And again, I don't want to speak theologically here, but this is just me putting basic strings together. I'd love to have a conversation, but there's people who are far more able to talk about it than me. But you have to have nations to start off with. And then you have to have people within those nations. And then those people within those nations will turn their hearts toward the Lord. That means that you can't necessarily have radically open borders and just have everybody going everywhere, because then you don't have nations. Nations have borders. Nations have borders. Like heaven, I suppose, those nations should have strict border controls. But everyone within those nations, the people whom are of those nations, would turn their hearts towards the Lord. Till that happens, well, we'll never see anything. May see little slices of heaven here and there and again, little slices of peace here and there and again. Until that happens, we can probably just expect more of the same. But again, we're not, the thing is, this the big thing of pride, right? We're not the writers of this story. We're not the arbiters of this story. We're not the authorities in the matter. That's the biggest thing. That's the big lie that was told in the Garden of Eden, right? Was that, you may be as gods. So many people have allowed themselves to think. Is when you see yourself as accountable to no one, that's like the ultimate sin of pride. You can't see yourself as doing any wrong. But then when everyone does that, that breeds relativism, and then you can't call anything wrong. And that's when you neglect to be able to see evil when it's right in front of your face. So like I said, and this is going back to the address I had to put at the start of the conversation. Well, discussion, conversation, just podcast really, episode. I love my people. I love my faith. I love my country. I love you. And I want best for you. I want God's grace to come upon you. And His love to come upon you. Everything that I do, I try to do out of love for those things. I hate evil. I say these things because we're in a war against evil. And everyone needs to be a voice in that fight. Because we all need to be on the same page. We all need to be in this fight together. And ultimately, we need to ask ourselves, what matters more? In some instances, brief feelings of comfort, the brief comfort we feel now until we get enslaved forever, or the discomfort and emotions we feel now in the fight for the good and for our future. Because it's not just us. It's the children. It's our children that are coming through. That we need to be, all of us, need to be the line of defense for. But for us to be the line of defense, we need to have concrete ideas to what's good and what's bad. We're never going to find that in ourselves. We need to turn our hearts towards the Lord. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you found this useful. As I said, I'll do my best to keep doing this work because it's important work. But yeah, for that person, know who you are. I've said a lot of praise for you. I've said a lot of praise for you, and there's no hard feeling. There's no nothing like that. Just wishing and hoping the best for you. You know, there's no resentment or anything like that. Because I understand. I understand what you're going through. I want you to get through it. Even though these words, you know, holy words to a demon are never... I'm not calling you a demon, by the way. This is me speaking in generalities. I say holy words and holy things to a demon, they never react well. So, if you sadly become one of those people that has, you know, thought evil good and good evil, then these words will likely not be received very well. But it is actually because I love you and I want the best for you. Whether you see it as that or not. So, with love, guys, I'll hopefully see you next time. You take care. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you for watching. Hwyl fawr. We'll see you next time. Godspeed.